Welcome to The Point of View, and this is your favorite current affairs show on Ghana television. The Point of View, we bring the right guests, we ask them the relevant questions on issues that matter to you. And we have a great show for you tonight. It's a 3-in-1 show. We have a live studio guest. We have a guest who will join us from China. And we'll also go out and build a ventilator all within 1 hour. It's going to be exciting. If you're watching, send us your comments by way of WhatsApp. The number is on the screen. And if you're watching on social media as well, please get in touch with us via the stream that's down there. Stay with us. So welcome back. As you can tell, we are still wearing our masks because we've learned now that the WHO has agreed with us that wearing masks help to curb the spread of coronavirus. So I won't wait throughout the show, but this is just to let you know that once you go out, you should wear your mask. And in fact, if you have your mask and you are within a group, you can wear it as well. We have more information on our website on the masks agenda. So today we're going to do a few things. We're going to review the president's announcement he made last night, where he spelled out some social interventions. We're going to discuss that with two people. I will have in studio the freshly minted or now newly designated Deputy Minister for Health, Dr. Bernard Okoboy. He's joining me in the studio shortly. I also talked to Dr. Alex Apia Asante, who is a molecular biologist based in China. We've been speaking to him on a number of issues. I called him up earlier on Zoom and had a chat with him. We'll start with him. Then we'll be joined in studio by Dr. Bernard Okoboy. Later on, we will drive together to the Academic City University, where celebrated Ghanaian inventor Professor Fred Magbagon-Luri is leading a team of students to build 2 prototypes of ventilators. A ventilator costs anything between $50,000 and $60,000 US. They said their ventilator will cost not more than 1,000 Ghana cedis. We'll talk about that also on the show. But let me start with my chat I had earlier. Moments before I came on air, I called up my molecular biologist friend to ask him questions around what he heard the president say yesterday. We also spoke about the number of medical practitioners getting infected with the coronavirus. He gave some ideas about how to deal with that.
Coming down to the issues you have enumerated in the various cases, starting from 11th March to 30th, specific cases, all the way to the 5th, which is only a day or two away. The key thing which I draw from it is that there seems to be a problem at the local or at the regional or municipal level of planning and handling the whole national agenda of fighting the disease, maybe contact tracing and suppressing the disease and making sure that those who are tested and found positive are infected are treated so that the disease doesn't run amok in the country. And this is where I think the issue is. I think because there seem not to be a very coherent or a clear local planning in terms of how at the hospital levels or at the, call it district or area level, how they approach this. We're seeing disgruntlement, we're seeing lack of satisfaction by the medics who are on the front line, and that is not a good thing. Okay, that's not a good thing. I think at the end of the day, they are the people who are going to actually help us get those who are infected properly cared for, reduce mortalities. So we need to be concerned about the operations, how they are organized, and the logistics, and how the protocols which are on the ground. So I would try and suggest a couple of things which might help address some of these issues. And these are the things which I believe from the national level going down to the regional and to the municipal and to the district level and to local hospital level, we need to, the kind of thinking we need to have. First and foremost, this requires a big strategic planning, which has to be looked on in a kind of a military planning, a military strategic planning manner. So I would advocate that the government brings in military strategists to help with how you actually plan such a kind of a warfare which you don't know what the enemy is doing. So you need epidemiologists at the national level. You need as a military strategist who are able to deal with the logistics and help with where things need to be. Because listening to the president, I could see that they've gone to a great extent to secure quite a lot of protective equipment and material which frontline staff need. But if we're hearing stories like this, then there is a bottleneck somewhere that maybe things are not got to where they need to be, or they got to where they need to be, but the local plans in terms of protocols which are needed to help these medics, the training they need in terms of how to conduct themselves and protect themselves in the course of their duty is not very fine.
Let me not cut you, but I interviewed the information minister this morning, and he kind of admitted what you're saying, because he actually appealed to listeners that basically if there are still problems at the facility level with PPEs, they should communicate with government so they know, because as far as the governmental level is concerned, they are making the PPEs available. But he keeps hearing on air that nurses say we don't have PPEs, doctors say they don't have PPEs. So he's basically saying that they need that feedback so they can know where the problem is. So I'm just saying that the government seems to admit that there is a disconnect between the view they have nationally and what is happening at the hospital level.
Yeah. Very so. So if that is the case, then as I've already mentioned, then we need to look at the whole strategic plans and the logistics. And these kind of logistics, the military are expert at this. So in countries like UK, who are trying to catch up, they brought in the military personnel or strategists to help move things where they need to be. And Ghana, I believe we have got experts like that, strategists within the military and people who could help us make sure that things go to where they go. The other side, you then have to deal with how the know-how of the people who are on the front line, because this is a new disease that the world doesn't know very much. It's only a few countries who have got some level of knowledge about how to handle it and the nuances and the challenges in terms of making sure that you reduce infections at the front line. Medics, as you rightly know, right now in Italy, we have over 10,000 medics infected in Italy. And out of that 10,000 infected, 73 are dead. Doctors are dead. China, when they started dealing with this, they also made some mistakes. But they learn about it, and they have got so much expertise in terms of how we deal with this at the cold face or at the front line that they are willing to share with the rest of the world. A number of the best practice is that how you design the hospital environment in dealing with this disease is very critical. Okay, so in China like that, every hospital where they are receiving COVID-19 patients have designed unique isolation wards or isolation units, which goes through a kind of a traffic light stages. Traffic light where we have is a triage system where you have a green zone, and from the green zone you progress to the amber zone, and then you progress to the red zone. That is, the red zone is where you have the critically ill, infected people, where nobody apart from the frontline trained ICU nurses and doctors who would be properly oriented. They will have all the full protection in terms of PPE, And even the way you put on the equipment, it's important. And so what I'm trying to advocate here is that we need to be able to quickly train these medics or medical staff, and hospital managers and people who run hospitals needs to clearly redesign specific areas where this kind of disease is handled. You cannot just treat it as any disease and you let everybody go through the same system, and then you put a COVID-19 patient in a side ward, as was being alleged by the Kolebu doctors, you see. So there is a need for managers to work with these doctors and nurses, people who have experience in managing patients, to come up with a proper design in terms of how people come through and isolating those individuals who are suspected or ill from the rest of hospital patients, and making sure that the medics themselves are trained on how to actually put these equipment. I'll give you an example. In China, for any doctor or nurse to go into the red zone, he would have another colleagues help dress them to ensure that the mask is properly put on, the head gear is put on properly, the overalls are put on properly, and there is no room where their bodies are being exposed. They have the visor, they have the shoe covers, and believe it or not, they have to put on diapers.
Wow.
These medics put on diapers because the place where they are working, it is not a place where you go in and maybe an hour you say, oh, I feel like I want to go to the bathroom, and then you step out and you go and you unzip yourself.
So there's no coming up. There's no coming up. So just tell me, what else, apart from the military strategy and the things you've described, what else should we do urgently to prevent the death of our medical practitioners in Ghana?
I think some of the things that we need to do here is, first and foremost, as we have already established, ensure that the protective equipment are at the hospitals. They reach the place, because it is not something that they can improvise. It's not something that they can do without. So wherever the logistic issues needs to be quickly resolved. 2, we need to train these people. 3, we can link them up with their colleagues who are in China. I'm going to give you 3 possible avenues for which that can be done. 1, the Chinese doctors have produced a COVID-19 prevention manual, which a copy is what I'm holding here, okay, which is freely available, and it details every step, how you do everything from community infection to wards management to medics on the front line, which is available. So that is a source of information which I can send you.
Please send me a copy, and I have 30 seconds. So just, what else do you want to show me before we go?
Okay. The next thing which they can do is, there is an online platform which has been developed by Alibaba for medics. It's a global platform where the actual doctors and people who have dealt with this can interact with each other and exchange. Or they can do virtual meetings. That can be arranged with the help of the Chinese embassy. I
have to leave it here because of time, but I appreciate your time so much. Thank you so much, Dr. Alex Appiah Asante, for your insight. He is a microbiologist based in China, responding to the critical issue of medical practitioners facing danger on the front line. This is The Point of View. Stay with us. So that was me earlier with Dr. Alex Apiasanti. He's a microbiologist, not a molecular biologist. They mean different things. You're live on the point of view. So, as I said, we have 3 in 1. The first part is what I just showed. I have in studio the MP for Lejokuku, who's also the board chairman of the Kolebu Teaching Hospital, and he's the freshly designated Deputy Minister for Health. The President sent the release less than 3 hours ago. Honorable Dr. Bernard Okobo, it's great to have you on the show. Good evening.
Yeah, good evening.
You are the man of the moment.
Senior Daddy.
You're a big man.
Bernard.
Yeah,
you know, I'm also Bernard.
I know.
So you have 2 Bernards from 1 precinct.
It will be powerful. But we'll start on a sadder note because this evening I got a clip from the BBC suggesting that the British Prime Minister is in quite a serious situation, that Boris Johnson has been moved to intensive care. Now, viewers, he got this, I think 2 weeks ago, and then 10 days ago, he sort of, after 10 days, he had severe symptoms, so he was sent to hospital. We're told that it was for precautionary reasons. Of course, this is very guarded. Now we're told he's in intensive care. His partner also has corona, but his is not as serious. And this evening, we're told that Prime Minister Boris Johnson has been moved to intensive care in hospital after his coronavirus symptoms worsened. Downing Street said. A spokesperson said he was moved on the advice of his medical team and is receiving excellent care. Now, this is the key point. He's asked Foreign Secretary Dominic Raab to deputize where necessary, the spokesman added. Now, the Prime Minister is 55, admitted to hospital with persistent symptoms on Sunday evening. The Queen has been informed about Mr. Johnson's health by number 10, according to Buckingham Palace. Now, he will not be the first leader to have contracted corona, but he will certainly be the first leader to have been hospitalized with corona symptoms. Now, let me start with the doctor guest here. How concerned should people be when somebody is in ICU with corona?
Yeah, Bernard, let me say a very good evening to all your viewers, and to also use the opportunity to thank you for all the well wishes. And coming from Presec,
of course.
I know it's a family thing. Yeah, and let me use the opportunity also to thank His Excellency the President for the honor done my modest self and my people, the Lejokuku constituency. And I pledge to put in all my energy, my time, do all the things I've learned on the job, and to make sure that we win this war. I continue to say that for the war we are going to win. The only thing we don't know is how long the war will take. And we all have a role to play in shortening the recovery time. Those roles we have lie in the precautions that we've been given. Keeping your social distance. Some say it's physical distance because we can be socially connected, but there's a gap.
They don't like the term social distance.
Social, yes. But whatever be the case, we still have to keep some distance, physical barrier distance. We also have to take our hand washing very seriously, and as much as possible, let's use sanitizers when the sink is not around. So let me say that usually, if you look at the statistics, the global statistics now, 95% of COVID cases have mild symptoms. 5% of the global cases, the active ones being dealt with, are severe. Now, when we say your condition is severe, what it means is that should we leave you on your own, your vitals might get worse. So when we say vitals, the oxygen concentration of your blood might be going down. You might have difficulty in breathing. And when you are struggling to breathe, it means you might be using more energy than necessary. You have what they call labored breathing. Because of the difficulties, your muscles must do more work to open up the lungs for air to come in. We are all breathing, but we don't feel it. It's unconscious. But once you start getting labored breathing, where you are now applying energy, it means something is wrong. And such a person is likely to burn more calories and can get exhausted easily. And once you are getting exhausted easily, then there are products that are also building up in your blood and all that. So it's a vicious cycle. And so you will end up at the ICU when your vitals, like we say in medical, are going down. So usually you expect a normal person to have a heartbeat that is not more than 90 per minute. 90 is the highest. We expect a lower threshold about 60. Now, if your oxygen starts going down, signals go to your brain that the heart must pump more, because oxygen is not being felt in the body. And that can let your heart race. So your heart can now start to go beyond 100 a minute. It can go 130, 140, and it can shut down. So usually they'll be monitoring your heart rate, trying to make sure it comes back to normal. Your oxygen must be rising to normal and all that. And those are the things that happen at the ICU. In worst case scenarios, they might bring in the ventilator to help you with the breathing process, because once you start tiring or getting tired, you lose energy.
So the ventilators are used when you are at ICU stage, when your lungs are struggling.
Yes, no moderately ill person is put on a ventilator. Yes, once a ventilator comes in, we are trying to take some or all of the function of the lungs to bring.
I'll show you a place I went where they are building homemade Ghana ventilators for you to comment on.
Wow.
But why do they usually say that people with underlying conditions are the ones who end up in ICU? What do they mean by an underlying condition?
Well, let me say that. All right, so you have underlying means that you have you already have certain conditions that in themselves can put your life at risk. So let's say a sickle cell patient.
Okay.
So those with sickle cell, because of the nature of their red blood cells, even when the weather changes, it can trigger a sickling process where their blood cells start to clot rapidly. And then when they clot, they can block flow of blood to certain parts of the body. And they can have severe pain. And they can have infection and all that. Even temperature change can trigger a crisis. So for such a person, when you have corona or you have an infection from a virus, the process of fighting the infection, they're building what we call the inflammatory response. It's like a curve. As you build it, there are some ramifications. It can come with a temperature rise. It can come with some difficult toxicity in your blood. Your heart can raise. This is someone already who doesn't tolerate temperature rise and all that. So this alone can now trigger the process, and the fellow can go into full-blown crisis.
Wow.
Yes, and then can pass in the process. You can also have someone who's had heart surgery. So if you've had heart surgery, what it means is that maybe flow of blood, pumping blood to the chest, the lungs, and back to the body can be a little bit problematic, which means you yourself are struggling with a few issues. Any infection like COVID, where the status localis, or like where the virus plays around, is in the chest, it can negatively or it can worsen your situation. And there are folks with heart problems who retain some level of fluid in their body. They are not able to excrete all fluid like we do through urination and all that. So sometimes minimally they themselves have some level of fluid in the chest. And so having a condition like COVID, which can lead to build up of fluid in your chest, it can worsen the situation. And so such people can...
That's what you mean by underlying conditions.
Underlying conditions.
And why do typically older people tend to suffer more with COVID?
Yes. So it's like a car that is 1 year old versus a car that is... You can have a car in a good condition that is 15 years of age, in a good condition. But there is a stressor that can come on a vehicle, and it will reveal to you that this is a 15-year-old vehicle. So when you get to age 70 or let's say 80, your kidneys, the percentage of kidneys that are working is not the same as 40 years. In fact, like some nephrologists will say, about 50 or 60% of your kidneys would be gone by the time about 80. Now, you don't have a kidney problem, but in terms of the makeup, you've lost some percentage of it. The same with the chest and with other organs. So at a younger age, you can stand some level of stress. And when we say stress, we are talking about conditions which are bringing hardship to your body, where temperature has gone up, where your heart is racing. At 30 years, your heart can beat at 150 minutes per minute, 150 beats per minute. And you might tolerate it for some level. Someone who is above 70 cannot afford to have the heart racing at that level. So more or less, you can stand, your shock or margin of stress is higher than the older person.
Let's talk about you briefly. Guys, put up the letter. So the presidency issued a statement appointing you as Deputy Minister for Health, moving Aban to communication, and essentially relieving your friend Sowa of his position. I'm sure the president has his reasons, but I mean, you've said a few things at the beginning already, but to be appointed a deputy health minister as a doctor in the middle of a global health crisis, having done a lot of interviews and explanation, clearly there has to be some immediate reasons for this.
Yes. Yeah, Ben, you know, when I was going to Kolebu, I think we were in the no bed syndrome
2 years ago.
Yes. And then on the back of that, I got to Kolebu, and thankfully I got a lot of cooperation from all the staff, so we're able to manage this.
How did they receive you? Just digression, because in terms of doctors, I mean, we know that Kolebu, there are some old doctors there.
Yes.
And you are rather young to be the board chairman.
Yeah.
How was your first board meeting?
Well, I think it went nice. It went well. Usually, I do a lot of stakeholder consultation. So I remember when I got to Kolebu, I met all the consultants. They have a consultants forum. I met all the nurses. I met Kolebu Senior Staff Association. In fact, I remember one time I had about 8 meetings in a day, just trying to let people appreciate your motive.
Including people who taught you?
Yeah. Okay, luckily for me, I trained in tech.
Oh, you went to tech?
In fact, if I'd been sent to tech, life would have been more difficult. Because people who
give you B+ and A- will say, look at this small boy.
But even beyond that, I have very good friends who can go like, leave these issues and let's do something else, and you have to leave. So that's what more or less did the trick in Kolebu. And I think the support was massive. We enjoyed camp because we consult and we talk a lot. Then communication is important, especially when you're dealing with groups that are, what's the word? Well-read, like they say.
Literate and well-educated.
Yes, so that they have to appreciate your motive. And I tell people the overriding factor usually is motive. You know, when the motive is clear, if the process or the course you are taking is even nebulous, people can cooperate because they've been told of the intent. And I always tell people, this is what I want to do. So that should I get it wrong with the process, you can help me to correct the process. And that is what we did in Kolebu, and I think that's what will help.
And they've thrown you into the fire now, in the middle of this global nightmare. Clearly, the president expects something from you. Yeah,
I believe so. And what I can say is that it will take a team to win the war, not an individual. So more or less, I'm going to play a role in the team, their work. It's already unfolding. And I guess one of the things I've identified, which we have to work on a lot, is the communication between those who are working on what is happening and the public that is supposed to be at the receiving end. Because I remember when I was doing my master's in Germany, one of our lecturers asked us, who is the most important person in a team managing a public health emergency of international concern? You know, when you have any condition which is across the globe, they call it a PHEIC. That's a public health emergency of international concern. Where a lot of people come in, health managers, you have finance ministers. You see, Honorable Ken went to Parliament. Everybody is involved. Generals, defense. So he asked, who is the most important? So in the class, I remember saying that it's the virologist who deals with the virus and tells us the makeup. Someone said, oh, it's supposed to be the clinician who is in the hospital. Someone says the person doing the contact tracing. The answer was shocking.
Which is what?
Which is the person who is the PR head.
Wow.
Who is the source of information.
For the public?
Yes, for the public.
Amazing.
So then he drew our attention that if the work done by the group is not sent to the public well, those you intend to protect can resist what you are doing. And that is where we have to, and sometimes it's not just the figures, but when you release the raw facts, the public would only consume.
So you're saying this is a communication issue. So as it's a virus issue, science, but you're saying the communication part of this.
The communication is absolutely critical. But you see, even to do the communication well, you must understand what the figures mean. Wow. Like we have 214 cases. What does it mean? It's prevalence. Prevalence means is a total of all the cases we've had since COVID came first to Ghana. But active cases we are dealing with might not be 214.
Great.
So you must let the public know that you have 214. It's the global number as a national number. But out of the 214, 5 are gone to glory. So you're not dealing with 214 cases. 3 have recovered. So it's further down. 49 on their way to recovery. It's further down. So what does it mean? So you'll be looking at how many will be recovering versus how many will be adding. And so the question is that, so what is likely to happen? Most of our cases were imported. So if the source were imports and the community spread, as at the time we had 2 or 4 cases, community spread was less than 15% from person to person in Ghana. So immediately your borders are closed. What does it tell you? It means even if we have numbers coming to add, it will trickle.
I'll let you hold that thought, and I'll take a short break. When I come back, I will continue this conversation, but I will also show you some people trying to help, because we are told that we had 67 ventilators in the country. I'm sure there are plans to bring in more, but they are very expensive. And now that we need money, I've been speaking to somebody who's been trying to build some with his students. We'll talk about that and also bring back Dr. Okoboy. This is The Point of View. Stay with us. Welcome back. This is The Point of View. We're talking to Dr. Okoboy. He's been appointed or designated the Deputy Minister for Health. He will be vetted by Parliament, and if he goes through, he becomes the Deputy Minister for Health. Earlier on, we spoke to Dr. Alex Appiah-Asante, all the way from China, who is a microbiologist. Now, I will do something quickly. I'm going to show you a story that's of concern to us, because even though there are many things you need PPEs, you need face masks and all these things, one of the things you need in fighting such a thing is what we call the ventilator. And the last time we checked, Ghana had less than 70. In fact, this question was asked of the Minister for Health at a press briefing, and he said that we had 67. Now, we don't know how many people will get into ICU, how many of them we would need, but there are people who feel that if the situation gets to a point where we need more, we could run into trouble. So here's the story. Ghana has 67 ventilators according to the health minister, and we don't know what that number means. Right, and I'll ask Okoboy to talk about this. But in different parts of the world, in Jamaica, in parts of Europe, universities are coming together to build ventilators, because one ventilator costs, a good one, about $50,000. And we know that this crisis is going to cost us a lot of money. So I drove earlier today to Academic City University to speak to my friend and inventor, Professor Mark Bagonluri. He and his students were working on building low-cost ventilators. Let's watch what they did. So Ghana needs ventilators to help in critical care for people who have COVID-19 disease. As we speak, there are 4 people in ICUs. We know that in Ghana we have about 67 ventilators. I've come here to Academic City to speak to a professor who says he can build low-cost ventilators to help in our COVID-19 fight. Let's get in there and see what they have for us. So I'm here at the lab to see my good friend, Professor Fred Mark Bagonluri, an inventor. He has over 50 patents to his name. What is he up to? Let's see what he has for us. Fred, how are you?
Not too bad.
We are greeting.
We're doing the leg thing.
What is going on? What is this?
Well, we are trying to build a low-cost ventilator in response to this pandemic that is ravaging the whole world. About a week ago, I sent a call out on Facebook for volunteers to come to Academic City College to support the team here to build one. And I have a combination of students here, from a student from Ashasi, some second-year students here, as well as some professionals in the medical devices field that responded to the call.
How close are you to building your low-cost ventilator?
Well, we have a prototype that we'll show you soon. I think we have, the concepts are done. We have 2 key concepts here. One is already motor driven, using a typical windshield wiper motor. The second one is a piston driven one. We're now 3D printing the rack and pinion systems to automate it.
How long did it take you to do?
1 solid week of sleepless nights.
And how much will it cost?
We are hoping that this should, in mass production, should cost about 1,000 cedis.
So can you show me what you have so far?
Sure. I have Mr. Salam Agbo here, somebody who has been in the medical devices field for some time now. He's going to take you through the demonstration of the prototype as well as the real biology and physics behind this mechanism.
The physiology behind this is that when the patient has this virus, the coronavirus, some of the lungs are filled with fluid. Some of them are collapsed and some of them are okay. So the idea here is to maintain the ones that are okay and reinflate the ones that have collapsed. So basically we have the air pump here. The air is generated from here, it goes through the humidifier. The humidifier puts moisture in the air because you don't want to be sending dry air to the patient. Then it comes through to the lungs. This is the artificial lungs. Then the patient then expires. Then it goes through the positive end expiratory pressure. This valve is supposed to prevent the lungs from collapsing again, maintaining a positive pressure here. Then from there, it goes through the scrubber, where it contains 70% alcohol to kill the viruses in the expired air before we release it into the atmosphere.
Can you demonstrate how the breathing happens or how the respirator works?
Okay, so basically here you have this pump system. Push it up and down, and then air gets filled, and then air gets into the lungs. So this system is going to be tied to a mechanical system which is timed. So it's going to be done automatically. So as it goes up and down, air is pumped into the lungs. This is the artificial lungs. Here behind here we have the humidifier. Here we have the PEEP. That is the positive end expiratory pressure valve. And here we have the scrubber. So these four main parts make up the basic ventilator. So based on its operation, the pump will be coupled to a mechanism here to do the automatic pumping. So it will move up and down. So as it's being pumped, the lungs are being filled. As it's being pumped, the lungs are being filled. Then when the lungs are filled, during the patient will have to expire the air out. So during the expiratory phase, the air goes through the PEEP system, which prevents the lungs from collapsing, and then goes through the scrubber, which kills the viruses before the expired air is emitted into the environment. So basically, that is how it works.
What is left for this to work?
So currently we are 3D printing the rack and pinion system to do the automatic pumping. So currently, that is what is left to complete the first prototype of this version.
And if, touch wood, we have 2,000 cases and there are so many people who need respirators and we don't have enough, can this work in a normal hospital where somebody is under intensive care, or do they need to spruce it up for it to work?
So, when we started this, the whole concept was to come up with something that functions in resource-limited environment. So, as he indicated, with the manual piston action, if you are in an environment where you are desperate to care for somebody, I'm sure family members will not mind taking turns to pump this thing. Okay, so there's no electronics needed here. If you are in an advanced intensive care unit, you can remove this pump action and replace it with an oxygen canister. The way we've also designed it has a little bit of agility in it. So you can actually configure 4 of these at the same time. They could be using the same oxygen source. They could be using the same humidifier source. They could be using the same scrubber source, and then you can move them on wheels into an intensive care unit. So think about a field unit. So it's light, portable, and very agile. And we're taking into consideration both. So we can put electronics in here to make it as sophisticated as the ones that we buy from abroad, or as simple and agile enough to be used in remote areas. And then we're also thinking solar. We could also have a solar configuration here where you can use it in the field.
So those are all add-ons, but the basic that you need is here.
It's here, that's correct. So the basic concept is here.
It took you 1 week to do this.
Yeah.
So let's assume we need 50. What would it take to produce 50? Because you're saying this could cost us about 1,000 cedis.
Yes.
So assuming the government said we need 50 to send to the Upper East region by next 2 weeks, how are you going to do the 50?
So next 2 weeks it won't happen. I say that because we're going to have to source real components. So all these PVC pipes you see here have to be transparent. so that you can see the liquid. They have to be graduated so that you can see the volumes. You have to be able to track how much air is being delivered to the patient. So at a conceptual level, this works. But we need to go through the second stage of productization, where you actually turn it into a product and then you have to validate it to make sure that you can actually put it on a patient. But when we complete this, I don't think it will take more than 20 to 25 minutes to assemble one.
When you complete the productization, yes, it will not take you 20 to 25 minutes to build one.
Yes, that's correct. Because the parts are really simple. There's a series of fittings and tubes. And so design for assembly is also one of the cost factors in building very agile systems. So I think a trained technician should be able to do this within 20 to 25 minutes to assemble one.
And can this be built anywhere, or you need a lab like this to do it?
This can be done anywhere. You can actually send the components to the field and have them assemble in real time.
So the main issue is the productization. Can you explain what that means and how long that takes?
Yes. So productization basically means that, the basic physics, the basic chemistry, the basic biology behind a product has been validated. And then you build a prototype, you test the prototype, which we've done here, to make sure that all the parts are working, functioning properly. You can demonstrate that, you can actually feel along. And then you go to productizing, which means that now you have to source real components, assemble the system, package it nicely the way it will look like in the field, and then you subject it to the FDA test for a medical device to make sure that, people's lives are not endangered. You put it on a dummy first to test the dummy, make sure the dummy can inhale and exhale with the help of the pump. And then you do a few human subjects tests. And then
can't we cut short that process? I mean, we are planning for a spike, yes, based on the projections.
Yes.
If a hospital comes to you and says, look, we don't have $55,000 to buy a ventilator, and we want you to do something for us, which of the processes can we cut short, and what do you need to happen for you to move quicker to production?
I would say, a letter from Ghana Standard Board or FDA saying, look, the basic biology is replicated by your system. Let's put it in 25 people and see how it works. And if it functions, let's deploy it. So it's a policy, it's more of a regulatory and policy issue.
So if I go to Professor Dodu and I said, Professor Bagonluri of Academic City has a prototype ventilator. He needs to come here, look at it, and then within a week or two, he can tell you whether this is good enough to be used in a hospital.
Yes, absolutely. That's all he has to. He has to have confidence that we're not going to have mortalities when we use this system. But this is basically, the basic functions of a typical hospital ventilator is here, mechanized.
So there you have it. The concept is there. Standards Authority has to come and check it out. We'll call Professor Dodu to see what he thinks about this. But he's going to show us a few more things that they are doing. I'm told they are different concepts. So let's check out what he has again.
So this is the second prototype that we developed. In fact, this was the first prototype that we put together. And it's made from locally available repurposed material. So the mechanism here is based on a typical windshield wiper blade motor. It is actually a windshield mechanical motor. And this is a Ford, came from a Ford. And this bellows was built from just your typical leather. So when you go to a blacksmith shop, there's always somebody sitting down there pushing on this leather, generating air into the bellows. Okay, so that's the same concept here. This mechanism pushes against these bellows. We create the air goes into the humidifier. Then from the humidifier, it goes into the patient, comes out, goes into the PIP system, and then goes out into the scrubber.
So that was Professor Bagonluri with his team. They had a team that was also doing modeling. Some two ladies were modeling these things to produce, and they had 3D printing and stuff. So I don't know what you think. These are Ghanaians trying to prepare themselves for what could happen.
Yeah.
If the president is watching this at home, what will he say?
Well, it's very impressive. I believe that difficult situations have the ingredient of pushing us to achieve. And I'm not surprised that we are getting all this. just to also say that we have different levels or complexities of ventilators. Some of the ventilators actually do not only assist you to breathe, but they actually can help tell your oxygen concentration. They can also tell us the capacity you have on your own. Maybe you are doing 20%, whilst the ventilator is doing about 80%. And that gives an indication as to when you can go off the ventilator.
Okay.
Now, I have a friend who called me and said the brother is in ICU in the UK. They tried to get him off the ventilator this week, and they had to put him back on the ventilator. I wanted to know what it means. So once a ventilator comes in, it means breathing on your own is difficult. And it's an indication that physically your strength is not that good.
Okay.
And so once they tried to put him back on the ventilator, it means they had seen an improvement on his vitals. That's the oxygen concentration, maybe the heart rate, the temperature, things that show that he's on his way to getting better. But sometimes what you see might not manifest exactly into what you expect in the physical strength. And so I told him that it's good news enough for them to have considered putting him back on the, taking him off the ventilator. That consideration will come out of positive indicators. But for them to say he should go back on the ventilator, it means that they want to give him some time so that his strength will go beyond any doubt. Let me also say that the minister, from your report, said we have about 76, right?
67.
67. Yeah. I understand and appreciate those who look at what is happening in the Western world and try to translate it directly into our setting. But like they say, medicine, although it's learned globally, its practice and sometimes manifestation is local. So if you have a situation where we've had 214 cases, and we had 2 critically ill patients. The last time the review came, they were moderately ill. To move from critical to moderate, the assumption is that your indicators are getting better. And from moderate, the path, should it continue, is to come to mild. And then from mild, you exit. And let me be quick to add that the reason why we are not seeing rapid rise in recoveries, in code, is that the recovery has a strict criteria. According to the WHO, all your symptoms must resolve. And then you must test negative on 2 consecutive occasions. So even testing negative after resolution of symptoms is still not enough. And it's a stringent criteria.
That's why the number is not increasing as fast.
Exactly. So people would be in the queue on their way to meet the strict recovery criteria.
But people are saying the 214 is not a fair reflection, because I think the president said that we had 19,000 contacts traced, 15,000 people tested, and that's where we actually know our size.
Yeah, so when you look at the imported cases that we had, when you look at the mandatorily quarantined people,
yes,
we had 1,030. 105 came out positive. If you look at the percentage, that's 10%.
Yes.
Now, their group has a higher risk compared to contacts who have been traced and put in a group. So if these 15,384 people belong to a group that had been imported from outside, then I would have expected our positive cases to be in the range of 7 to 10%. That would have been, I would have been more worried if their group had elevated risk, like those that were mandatorily quarantined. But what I'm sort of pleased with is that this is a group with a risk that is lower than the mandatorily quarantined people. You see, so
you don't think you are hoping based on this that we won't have more than 10% of the 15,000 testing positive?
I mean, if we should do even more than 5%, I'll be surprised.
Really?
And the reason is simple. If you look at the case we lost in Kumasi, Konfanoche, the person was clinically ill, was severely ill to the extent that he lost his life. If you look at how the viral activity is, as the viral load goes up, we expect your symptoms to manifest. And for someone to be clinically ill, you would assume that the viral load is quite significant. Yet all those who were traced in that unit at Konfanoche, their results came back negative. Now the student who came to Legon, the Legon student who came back from I think UK or so, all those that were traced, the contacts, more than 80 of them, not even one was positive. I'm not surprised because it's not every positive case that is necessarily contagious. There's a difference between being positive and being contagious. You must meet some minimal threshold in terms of.
So you can be positive and not fall sick.
Absolutely. In fact, majority. There are a lot of people.
So what will you do to such a person?
Forgive me, but some are for statistical relevance and also for monitoring purposes.
So do they be monitored?
Once you are tested, you are positive, but you are asymptomatic. In fact, there are some who will be asymptomatic. They will recover, get out without anybody knowing.
As in the positive would become negative?
Yes.
They won't show any symptoms?
Without anybody knowing.
Would they give them medicine?
No, there are some in the population, they will complete the process, nobody will know.
So, but if somebody is tested positive and the person doesn't show any symptoms, will they still give him medication?
For now, in different jurisdictions, they are giving certain regimes. I know some different countries, I will not mention ours here until we get to the place where we can. But for even those who are asymptomatic, they are more or less giving something like a cover. There are some medications that are, we call it treatment protocol regime. And it's because scientists or the doctors' research has shown that when you are giving the cocktail, they have a way of giving you cover. You know, if you get a viral infection and the doctor ends up giving you antibiotics are not for viruses.
They are for bacteria.
Yes, but the doctor will say it's an antibiotic cover. The reason being that there are bacteria that start to play around with you when a virus has created the environment.
Opportunistic.
Exactly. So they give you a cover to shield you from those ones. And the funny thing is that it is the bacteria that normally, most of them, their clinical presentation is harsh. It means they have serious morbidity. The virus can be playing around with you for long. But a bacteria within days can let you have severe illness. So the doctor wants to cover you so that you buy time to recover on your own. Some give other drugs that also protect you against other...
you are getting a lot of comments. So I need to take a break and read some for you before you answer. I'm enjoying the medical lesson here, but I'll take a break. We're talking to Deputy Minister of Health Designate Dr. Bernard Okoboy. Stay with us. Welcome back. Let's read a few comments for Dr. Okoboy. Bernard, ask your guest, as a health practitioner, what will he advise the government to do concerning the schools, especially the third-year students? We are learning the positive lessons from this deadly coronavirus. Healthy living lifestyle will be part of us when we finally drive this disease from us. Anyway, congrats to Honorable Okoboy on his appointment as Deputy Minister Designate for Health. Kwesi Reynolds, Agona Odobing. Dr. Ayono Asesewa says, I always enjoy listening to Okoboy. He makes health issues very simple. All the best, Doc. It's always enlightening watching you. I believe the government is doing very well in the fight against COVID-19. Now is the time to support the government by abiding by various protocols. Ernest from Koforidua. There's a long one here with no name. I'm going to skip that. Bernard Okoboy's appointment is long overdue. In fact, he is a gem when it comes to health education. Congrats on your new appointment, Doc from Samuel Akofu, Junior Apam. Please ask Okoboy for clarification. Don't read at the end of the show when he can't answer. On the Ghana COVID-19 website, it says 26 additional people in mandatory quarantine have now tested positive, bringing the number to 105. But the total still stands at 214 cases. How? That's a question you have to answer. Good evening, Bernard. I understand the lady who escaped from quarantine center up north has been arrested in Accra. How true is this? Has she been able to enter Accra? How is she able to enter Accra since Tema and Accra have been locked down? Well, this was delivered to us by Aban. He said it on the big issue on Saturday. So that's correct. Somebody wants to know how come the mandatory quarantine has jumped from 79 or 80 to 105, and yet the total number is 214. Do you have an answer?
Yeah, so let me say that it speaks to the stringent job that is being done. When they tested all of them, 12 days later, they did a second test, just so that they don't miss out any. And guess what? 26 who were missed in the first test were picked in the second. And so it's because of the stringent measures that they are using.
So the 214 will go up?
Yeah, well, I think I assume that
it's part already.
Yes, but I've not done the maths.
Because I have routine surveillance 124, confirmed 80. If you put that together, that's 204. And then you add the 10 in Tamale mandatory quarantine, that's 214.
All right.
So if the mandatory quarantine has jumped from 80
to 1,
You have to add the 26.
I'll look it up.
So it means that, and of course, the press conference tomorrow.
Yeah.
So they're going to announce this.
Yeah.
What's the most important thing the president said yesterday? This is our last question. He addressed us and he announced a lot of relief. Yeah. Which one excited you the most?
So I think, first of all, let me say that these 15,384, like I said, their risk is very unlikely to be like the 10% we had in those that had been quarantined mandatorily. So I am hoping that we do something that would be below 500. Below. If we do 100, I mean, we are lucky. We do 50 because the number is huge. You know? But, and Ben, if you are doing even 100, it's 5%. That might be, not might be severely ill. That's 5 people. So let's hope for the best. For the president's package, I think the best one is the one that affects all of us. All health workers are going to get a tax exemption on their emoluments. And I explain in simple terms. If your net that you take home is 1,800 Ghana cedis, when they've taken out your taxes, now we are not going to do that.
So your gross will become your take home?
It can be about 2,000 or 2,200 or whatever. So, Ben, so in effect, money has been added to what you are going to receive fiscally. This issue with frontline, I think we should be careful not to start using our energies meant for fighting COVID into disbursements. I think the motive is clear that there are some health workers who are coming to direct contact with COVID cases. So I sit at LECMA to consult, but I admit that my colleague who is with, let's say, the airport team, taking samples from people who have traveled into this country, continuously being exposed, their risk is greater than mine. So although every health worker has a greater risk than a normal Ghanaian or the ordinary citizen, there are health workers with elevated risk than some of us. And we just must have a frank discussion. Let me quickly mention that policy declarations come ahead of the breakdown. So what the president did was the declaration of the policy or the program. The details, the devil, they say, is in the details. And it will come with engagement. So,
fantastic. Good luck in your vetting. I don't know when they'll do it. I'm sure we'll be there to cover it. That was Dr. Bernardo Koboy, who's the MP for Lejokuku, which is also Teshi. He's the board chairman of Kolebu. I doubt if he will continue because he can't be board chairman of Kolebu and deputy minister at the same time. Earlier on, we spoke to Dr. Fred Magbagonluri and his students from Academic City, built 2 beautiful prototypes. I'm sure you talked to your minister about it. Go and visit them. It's a good thing. And earlier in the show, we spoke to Dr. Alex Apia-Asante all the way in China. My name is Bernard Avle. Thank you for watching City TV. Wear your mask when you go out, as I'm doing now. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye. Hi guys, I hope you enjoyed this video on City TV's YouTube channel. Subscribe for more videos on The Point of View. My name is Bernard Avle. Thank you.
The Point of View with Bernard Avle, Monday and Wednesday nights, only on City TV.